Hello again, everyone. It's good to see you. Welcome to another interview in which we take a look at some of the really innovative people and speak with some of the innovative people that are doing interesting things in the logistics industry. I'm Dan Calabrese. Thanks for being with us, and especially thanks to our CityBiz audience for tuning in today. I'd like to introduce our guest. Say hello to Alfonso Quijano. He comes to us from Lean Solutions, which is a nearshoring services company that has heavy operations in Latin America, particularly Colombia. And Alfonso is especially involved in a lot of AI related innovation. So we want to talk to him about that today. Alfonso, thank you so much for being with us today.
Oh, thank you so much, Dan, and excited to be part of this interview.
Good. I'm glad because there's a lot of really interesting things to talk about in this realm. So I want to start with this. You have an extensive background not only in developing technology, but also in building technology teams, strong emphasis on logistics. So I want to focus on the role AI can play in boosting the performance of logistics teams. It's emerging so rapidly, and so many companies, I think, are struggling to know what the best starting point would be for working with AI. So what would you recommend would be the best starting point for companies in the logistics industry that want to start integrating AI with their teams?
That's a great question. We actually just came back from a conference in Arizona, logistics focused, called the TIA. Over 1,600 people, and everyone was asking about AI. Everyone was asking about the perfect way to get started with these implementations. And I conducted a workshop where we talked about the 7 pillars of adding productivity to your organization in the new era. So the new era, I qualified as where everything is AI, from your note taker device to chat GPT, and it is somehow embedded in everything you do. But very ironically, the way that I think you should start is by not looking at AI first. You should look at your data. You should look at whether you have the correct foundations. And AI is this all-encompassing term. It's being thrown around there very heavily. I think AI is rarely used today where people think it is. They're using other things. They're using machine learning. They're using OCR. They're using components of AI. But if you don't have your data right, if you don't have a data warehouse, if you don't have a place where you are standardizing how you collect information, if you're not measuring the right things, AI is going to do very little, if not be detrimental to your performance in any sector, not only logistics.
Yeah, and I think that that's a great point because just what you said about like people say they're using AI, but they're really using this or that. So it has some elements, but it's not quite the same thing. And I think that that's part of that's part of the dynamic that's maybe causing the industry to struggle a little bit with it out of the gate. Because not only do they not always know what is and isn't AI, but they're not really sure what to expect from it.
I agree with that. And like the first thing somebody will say when they're pitching them about this new AI product is like, what's in it for me? If they're really serious about it, they'll know what's the ROI, what am I going to get out of it? Is it like a 10x, 20x? So like, what are the productivity gains? And the real answer to that is that very little people know. In reality, it can change so much. If you do it right, yes, it could have a ton of impact, but it's not going to be this dramatic impact and change that people are talking about. Like, for example, when RPA came about, and we've had this exact same discussion about RPA about 4 years ago. Is RPA going to fundamentally change how we do business? It didn't. And it's a nice to have, but it definitely didn't have all those it didn't keep up with all those promises that it was supposed to fulfill.
Yeah. Now, the biggest proponents of AI always emphasize it's not about replacing people, it's about empowering people to achieve more. I have to imagine a lot of the employees that are hearing that are like, well, it's nice that you say that, but I'm not quite sure that I believe it, and I'm still kind of nervous about it. What would you tell people that are nervous about that to maybe make them a little more confident?
Well, it's so nice timing. Today, I was reading in the morning about a very ambitious AI project called Devon AI that was released or talked about 3 weeks ago. It's the first fully automated AI programmer. Obviously, everyone was shaking. All developers across the world were like, oh my God, now they finally replaced us. Now they found out that it's not true. It didn't actually perform as they were said. It was all marketing play. And like, I think that this is typical across 90%. That's a made up number, but like all across a numerous amount of products out there. And it's a lot that they just promise, they overpromise and underdeliver. So the way that I should see it is, yes, AI is going to have a big impact. Yes, it's going to play a fundamental role within your day-to-day tasks. And yes, you have to learn it, but it's not going to do exactly as a lot of people are promising. And the only way for you to know this for sure is to deeply invest within adding it to your daily work. We do this all the time at Lean Solutions Group. We have some metrics associated to hours saved to the implementation of our technologies. Our note takers, for example, they're giving us back roughly 200 hours a year per person. We have training videos powered by AI that are saving us, double-digit hours per year per resource, and all those things start to add up. You have to start to use them. You have to start looking at how those things are really going to impact your specific case before thinking that it's going to just replace everyone in an organization.
A lot of carriers, 3PLs, they're using AI for things like forecasting. You're looking at trends in the market because they're trying to make decisions on things like how you're going to allocate over the road assets, for example. So you're trying to anticipate where there's going to be opportunities or where there's going to be activity, and AI is developing models to show them recommendations on that. What would you say that the people who are using AI in those ways need to understand about the potential, but also the limits of AI working in that area?
Okay, so that's another example of where, yes, you can call it AI because it's using a component of it, but it's really not like AI in the sense, like people talk about the terminology AGI. So is it really an AI that can have knowledge in various domains and make decisions based on various sources and allow you to autonomously give you information? No, it's not there. There's not a single AI out there that can really do that. What it's really doing is that it's storing a massive amount of data and making decisions based on that, cutting the time that it would take a human to make those same assumptions. In terms of these load matching systems, prediction systems, again, all those predictions are going to be as good as the data that actually made them up. So companies that are in their smaller stages trying to apply AI and maybe have thousands of records, are they going to get something reliable that might, steer them in the right direction? Maybe not. Do you need millions and millions of data in order to make something that can potentially work for something very specific? Also not. So trying to find the right balance between how can we make this very specific, let's call it AI in that sense, very specific AI automation have a positive outcome for me. That is always 100% goes back to data. I would encourage everyone to find ways in order to measure, do a side-by-side comparison of how this is really impacting your organizations, what hours are being saved, and on top of that, how are you going back to this comment of measuring the right things? How are you measuring the right things that will allow you to know whether that implementation is being fruitful for you? There's a ton of platforms out there that are connected to your systems and that allow you to extract all the meaningful bits and pieces that allow you to make up that image of am I doing something that's right? Is it correct? Is it on an upwards trend? And then finally, the other very important component is it's not enough to measure yourself against yourself. Like this idea of saying I'm going to QA my own work, that can get you up until one point. Now, how are you benchmarking yourself against other organizations? How are you looking at benchmarks that allow you to say, are my carrier decisions the best ones that I can make in the industry? Am I really matching the best lanes? And if you don't have that comparison, it's very hard for you to know if you're doing if you're making the correct choice.
Yeah, and I think that that's a really critical point because in terms of people understanding how this all works, and you talked about how good the data is and how critical that is. If somebody just kind of thinks about it as, well, I mean, I asked Chat GPT to knock out this article about whatever, and it did. So that must mean that I can ask it to tell me where to put my assets, and it'll do just as well. Because they don't necessarily understand the difference between the data available in the two situations. So do you see the industry getting up to speed on those things?
I think that there's a great room for error today, to them that is going to cause them to make mistakes when applying AI, is going to lead to a lot of frustrations. Like, even if you go to the most simplistic version of applying AI today, like OpenAI did a really great job at creating this interface where virtually anyone could come and, have AI at their fingertips. This was never done before, but not because AI didn't exist. AI has existed since the 1970s. And the same algorithms that were made back then are the same ones that are being used today. What's really changed is that it's cheaper now. It's cheaper. Everyone can get their hands on it. There's distribution channels. So yes, that's good, but it's also very bad at the same time because it allows virtually anyone to try it out. And I can go on ChatGPT right now, today, and I can make it say a whole bunch of things that are not true. I can make it hallucinate, as it said. I can make it say things that are not true at all, and I can do the same thing for data, for loads. I can do the same thing for things regarding my organization. There's chatbots, for example. This is another trend where you feed it information from various sources within your organization, presentations. You can connect to the APIs, spreadsheets, and you could feed it data, right? And then based on that, you can ask information, and you can create like this local database of all your information. We're doing it. We're seeing the challenges. It's not as easy as everyone would say. It's like, yes, you're just going to be able to know everything as if you were asking somebody else. Not really. It doesn't have that logical component where it ties all the variables that you need in order to make that decision. Unless, once again, you're training it the correct way. You're telling the AI the right things. Even like with ChatGPT, the prompt engineering piece. Like, if you tell ChatGPT to take a deep breath and perform this task step by step, it'll have a double-digit percentage more accuracy in their response versus not doing it, because you're understanding the mechanisms behind the AI. Like somebody said, I'm not sure who did. I think it was Elon Musk who said that, or actually it was Sam Altman from OpenAI. He said everyone's going to be a programmer. Everyone's going to be a programmer in the near future. And I think people misunderstood what that means because they're thinking I'm going to go and code a whole bunch of things and I'm going to be the programmer. No, it means that the fundamental logic that you have when you're programming is you're following a set of instructions that are pre-designed to accomplish a set of tasks. AI is no different. You have to understand the underlying technology. You have to say the right things to get the desired outcome. If not, it doesn't work.
Right. If you understand how to deploy the technology, you understand what its capabilities are, you understand what its limits are, and you understand how it can best respond to your input. That's when you can get the most out of it. And it's interesting what you said about how, yeah, now it's available to everybody, and there's good and bad to that. Because a lot of the applications that anybody can access are probably useless to most people in the logistics industry. So are you working with people to help them identify which are the best ones to actually use for what they need?
That is part of what we do. So at Lean, talking a little bit about that, we talk about helping customers build the most productive teams for their organizations. That has a lot of components to it. So it's understanding the data behind how you can create a team. Like even looking at our HR, they do something where they assign a color to each individual person, and they look at the distribution of that color amongst the team. Like each color has a specific meaning like a red will be someone that's very outgoing and like very decisive and aggressive. A blue will be methodical and then there's, green and yellow. And that composition is something very specific for very specific tasks. Like you can assign a specific composition that aligns with what the customer is looking to hire, and they will have a better performance, better alignment with that particular team. So that's just one component of like that consulting that we do. But then on top of that, if there are platforms out there, if there are specific things that they should be applying in order to be more efficient in their day-to-day tasks, we as Lean are in a very privileged position. We work with some of the best organizations in North America and even the world, where we're able to see everything, all the tiles turning and everything moving, and we're able to see what decisions are being made, and we have the ability to predict a lot of these things. Not only that, see trends. So I see Lean basically taking a step up and being able to very objectively create growth paths for customers in which they see themselves here. They see other industry leaders here, and they know, and we tell them exactly what they need to do in order to achieve that greater level of quality, which could be through reduced costs. It could be through added technology, increased productivity, among many others.
Yeah, I mean, and that's so critical because, and I guess I'm kind of getting to my last question with this, but because you're in the logistics industry, you see the challenges that the industry faces right now. So as you work through these AI applications with people, people in nearshoring, people all different parts of the world, Latin America, if somebody in the industry were to say to you, like, what would be the most beneficial application of AI that the industry could be focusing on right now to help us get past our current challenges? What would you recommend?
I think that the best use of AI today has to do with one, training. So there's a turn wheel. There's a lot of attrition that goes on in the logistics industry. There's a lot of hiring that happens in the on season, off season, etc. And the act of hiring, and it's one of the reasons we exist, demands a lot from an organization. It takes a big toll and making sure that everyone's up to speed, that they know the processes inside out. If you don't have the processes to begin with, that's going to be a pain just to start there. Like if you don't have them written out. So, if you don't have it, get someone to do that for you, maybe Lean. But on the other side, there's the problem of how am I doing this effectively? How many hours are your training teams actually investing today in getting your people up to speed when you're having to hire 200, 300 of them at a time? This happens, right? What platforms are you using in order to feed them that information? And then after you've fed them, how do you make sure that they've actually retained this information? How do you make sure that ongoing as they do their tasks, that there's a mechanism to send that information to the ones that are actually reviewing the process and saying, this is correct? So anything that has to do with that process, I think is really, really key for companies in the logistics space today. I know there's a lot out there that are going to want to say like, oh, maybe I thought it was going to be something like very related to the weeds of what happens in logistics, like the matching stuff, etc. The thing is, that's been around for a while, and it's a long ways until that actually gets disrupted. So telling someone that they can go and apply this today has a ton of foundational work that needs to happen before. This is an example of one of those critical areas where you can get a lot of bang for your buck through an AI implementation.
And it's so interesting that the answer you gave me had to do with training, which has to do with people, which does tend to support the idea that ultimately, when applied correctly, this is about empowering people to do more and do better and give you more. So that's an interesting place to end on. So we will end there. But Alfonso Quijano, thank you so much for being with us today. This has been such an enlightening conversation. And I hope that everybody in the industry has gained a lot of insight from it. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. Thanks especially to those of you in the City Biz audience. I'm Dan Calabrese, and we will see you again soon for another logistics-related interview. Have a great day, everyone.